In the beginning, there was radio.
The radio is one of the outstanding developments of the 20th century.
A radio transmitter was used for large-scale public entertainment.
Then came computers.
You got to keep up with the times, you know.
Imprints of man's never-ending path of progress.
Back in my day, we didn't have no fancy computer boxes to use.
Shall we play a game?
The internet tied it all together.
The internet gave us a whole world of exciting new possibilities.
A bright new era dawning. A new dimension in communications.
It is possible to establish communication instantaneously from any place at any time.
And now it's the 21st century, and we've made it all toxic.
Hold on to your hats. Okay, we're ready to roll.
This is Toxic Radio. Don't play it safe. Play it toxic.
That's what I'm talking about.
Master, dinner is served. Igor, it's not that I don't appreciate the effort, but you know I prefer my meals uncooked. And how many times have I told you about using garlic? Yes, Master. Forgive me, Master. Please. Bite into Paradelphia. Thursday nights at 8, only on Toxic Radio. Paradelphia, because what if it's all true?
Enjoying all that Toxic Radio has to offer? Well, make sure you like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be the first to find out about ticket giveaways, amazing guests, awesome contests, and Toxic Radio events. Just search Toxic Radio Live, all one word, and press that little button. Every time you do, someone here at Toxic Radio will get their wings. Yay! Well, not really. Aww. But we will get a warm, fuzzy feeling in our tummies. But then again, that just might be the beer. Anyway, like and follow us, and we will see you out there on the interwebs.
Hungry for Hope Nation, your host here, Donnie Hart. And we got a great show today, but first, let me introduce my guest co-host here. We got Matt Davies. You might remember him. He's been on the show, Matt. How many times you been on the show, Matt?
This will be 3.
Matt, well, welcome back. How does it feel to be the guest co-host?
It's awesome. I love being here.
All right, Matt, that's all. You're the co-host. You're not going to talk and tell your story today. We got somebody who is going to tell their story. All the way from the great state of Oregon, we got Richard Jensen live in studio. Richard.
Thanks, Donnie. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Richard, man, we want to thank you so much for coming here. You really wanted to be live in studio, man. That's what I love. I always recommend it. I feel like being live in person, you can really just share that inspiration a little better, and people get that. You know, we have great technology where we can do the Zoom, but it's just something about having you live in studio with us.
Yeah, no, it was great that everything lined up perfectly. I mean, what are the odds that I'm in the demograph, you reach out, love to hear your story, love to have you on, and I'm within striking distance to be here in the studio. Couldn't pass up the opportunity.
Yeah, man, it's just, I always say kind of destiny happened. Just that we came across each other and that you were able to be here live in studio. And it all happened kind of quick, man. And your story is one I personally love. I actually saw it on ESPN. They did a little documentary on you. You came out with a book. Your story, you know, obviously you tell your story better. I've been getting hit up all day. People excited to hear your story, how you went from, you know, you were homeless, you were drug addicted. You've been open about your past, man. You struggled for 15 years through homelessness, prison for almost 7 years. And then you went on to become a national champion wrestler, author, somebody who travels the country sharing story and affected thousands of people. You won an Emmy, your documentary won an Emmy on ESPN. But, you know, we got to ask, where did it start? You tell your story best. So, Richard Jensen, tell Hungry for Hope Nation about you.
Yeah, appreciate that. You know, and a lot of people, their first question is, why wrestling? You know, they reach out, they're like, why wrestling? You know, I'm 37 years old making a comeback in a sport it's just unheard of, you know. Why wrestling? One of the hardest sports on the planet. We're not baseball, Rich, you know. And, You know, you got to go way back. You got to go back to my childhood. You know, wrestling was the one thing that helped me stay on track when I was a kid. It helped me stay focused. It helped me get through school. It was like medicine for me. You know, that was my recipe for success as a kid. You know, with everything pulling at you, wrestling was the heartbeat. And you know, I've never felt such a part of being on the team. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, I'm a kid that started out life with low self-esteem to start with, you know, and struggled to kind of find his way and figure out my identity, you know, and wrestling was kind of, it was the freedom for me, you know, when I got on the mat and I wrestled. And I wasn't a great athlete, guys. You know, this is a kid that's a 500 athlete, but loves the sport of wrestling, you know, and a lot of heart, kicking and scratching and fighting. And so wrestling was an important part of my life early on. And, you know, when I got off track and I got lost after high school, you know, and I didn't have wrestling, didn't have school, didn't have my friends around me, didn't have my structure that I'd been used to for so long. Hadn't got into any drugs or alcohol, you know.
Now, when was this? You wrestled in high school, and then you got away from it after you graduated?
Yeah. So I graduated in 1989, you know, and, you know, I wasn't a partier. I was an athlete. I was a wrestler. And then, you know, I was going off to college that next fall. This is where it all happens. This is where my life changed forever, guys. You know, I'm a 500 wrestler. I'm not a shoo-in in a college, you know, with all the accolades. Right. But my coach reached out to the local community college, Clackamas Community College, and said, hey, listen, you got to take this kid on. You know, this kid has a chance to do well. This kid's getting better. He's got a lot of heart, you know, and brings a lot of value to the team. Mm-hmm. So I had an opportunity to go to college in the fall, and during that summer prior to, I got an opportunity to go up to Alaska to fish for the summer. Make a bunch of money, come back, and go to school and have some money in the bank. That simple, you know. And, you know, a kid with nothing, middle of 7, you know, just hand-me-downs, just making it, you know, and a chance to go make some money, you know, that's a lever. It's a carrot. So, you know, my life changed that summer, guys. I went up fishing in Alaska. I made a whole bunch of money, and I started, I was introduced to drugs. And for the first time in my life, I'd used drugs. And when I came back home, my life had changed forever.
So how old were you when you first went to Alaska, Rich?
Yeah, I was 19. I was 19 right out of high school.
You were 19, and, you know, you went from go to college and wrestle. You said, you know, you weren't some All-American, but you were decent. And you had a chance. Your coach spoke up for you. So you went from about to go to college wrestling to a whole different world. You're around grown-ups, and you're out in Alaska. I was talking to Matt. I was like, Matt Davies' story is kind of similar. At 18, you went to a ship in the Navy, and you were around death. You know, you're 6 months in, and he was out on a ship, you know, around some wild stuff. I know it's different, but it must have been a wake-up call to go from high school wrestling almost to college to being with grown-ups and in the drug world and all that stuff.
Yeah, you know, it was like it was a different world, you know. Here you are, a kid that's, you know, and I'm late puberty, I'm immature, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I'm a kid in a man's world. Like up in the fishing industry, it's a tough industry up in Alaska. You know, there's a lot of rough, tough men up there. Yeah. And, you know, with that came a lot of partying and a lot of drugs and a lot of, you know, and it's stuff I had never been around. But here I am now, I'm trying to find my place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, at the time I didn't have the tools to deal with that kind of situation. You know, I didn't have the tools to say, oh, no, I don't do that, you know. And I was afraid of what they would think of me.
Yeah.
I was afraid I wouldn't fit in. I'd be an outcast. I'd be alienated up here in Alaska with all, you know. And so, you know, started drinking and using drugs. And by the time I got home that summer, you know, college was a little foggy, you know. And I thought, well, I'll just put it off for a little while. You know, just put it off for a little while, and we'll revisit that. And so within a year, I had bought into the fishing industry. I was all in, you know.
I think there was a lot of money. So is that what drove you in the beginning? And young kid, you came from a little, tough upbringing, money-wise, and to get that quick money, is that what kind of took you away from going to college and, living the broke college kid thing?
Well, yeah, it drove a lot of it, It was like all of a sudden, and this is, 1990, 91, a kid through the summer has $25,000. Well, that's some money, Yeah. To me, that was I'd never seen that much, It's hard to get that kind of money.
Yeah.
And so it drives you. It's the carrot. It's the big carrot. And then, all you hear about is the Alaskan deep sea crab fishermen make the most money in the world, and so that became the focus, man. And for 5 years, here's what I did, guys. I bought in and I fished for about 4 or 5 years, and I jumped from boat to boat and season to season, from longline into crabbing to tendering to salmon, cannon, and I bounced around and I kept moving. And by the 4th year, I had found my way to the king crab fishing boat. I got a job on a crab tender, and I was down below processing, and I was like, I need to get up on deck. I need to get up on deck because I want to get on this crabbers. So I found my way up on deck, and it's called pitching crab. And so I pitched crab for a season, and by the end of the season, I had found a job on a commercial king crab fishing boat to go fishing. And they were the king of the seas. That's what you wanted to do. And, I got a chance to do that. And I'll tell you what, I was only a half share, and it was about an 8-week season, man, and I made over $50,000. Wow. It's just, it's retarded money for a kid that doesn't know what to do, and at the time had a habit too. So you can imagine where my life went from there.
By this time, did you already have a drug addiction? You've been out there, like 4 or 5 years at this point? Were the drugs becoming more part of your life?
It became my whole life. It became my whole life. It was all about using. I couldn't not use for a day, by then. And, I didn't really, and I seen glimmers of problems, glimmers of issues, but I didn't really see it very as clearly as I did about another year or so later, when I was actually unemployable, when it got really bad. And a lot of it was masked by drugs. You don't think about how bad it really is when you're deep in it, and having that kind of money and partying and not a care in the world and not even thinking about tomorrow, it's feast or famine, and by the time the season was over, though, I'd have all this money, and then 3 months later I'd be broke. I'd be completely broke,
Wow.
And need to go fishing again. And that was that cycle,
And so you're out there. How long did you actually stay out in Alaska, and what brought you back? You eventually came back to Oregon?
Yeah, so I was always coming back to Oregon every 2 or 3 months after each season, and I was actually fishing 2 or 3 seasons a year for a few years. And then when I got on the commercial king boat, that was just through the winter. That's winter deep Bering Sea crabbing. And it was rough, man. It's.
I was gonna say, it sounds
tell us how that was.
It was rough.
That's the king of the sea out there. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah, and you see on TV, it's kind of glorified a little bit, but this is back in the early 90s when there's less regulations. The quotas are massive, and they're a little more gung-ho at that time,
Say there's less camera crews watching.
Yeah, right. Less eye of the sky keeping an eye on you, And but there you are. I'm a young kid out there in that man's environment, that rough environment with way too much money, and. I got back from king crab fishing. I had all this money, and I bought all this stuff, and I got really, really loaded for about a year, and then I couldn't. And then they wouldn't have me back on the boat. Basically, the fishing employability was tough. Because I was so strung out and so messed up. It spiraled really fast, and I think a lot of it had to do with the money, and a lot of it had to do with I was just, I was out of control.
So how was life when you finally did return from Oregon? You went out as a young kid at 18, 19 to Alaska. You lived that high life. How was it once you came back? Now you're coming back. You left as a high school kid who was about to go to college. Now you came back in your 20s with a drug addiction, just got done, doing man's work on these crab ships that we see glorified. How was that?
Yeah, well, so now I got a full-blown drug habit. So now I have to, I have to keep that fed, and, once the fishing money ran out, I had to turn to selling drugs. I had to turn to thieving. I had to turn to things that could keep me fed, at the time, because that was my world, and so, from there, over the next 15 years, I destroyed everything around me. It separated me, completely severed me from my family. Drove a wedge between everything I loved and cared about and myself. And, we got to remember, too, this is a kid that came from a decent home, came from a loving belief system, good family, so, this can happen to anybody, Donnie. This can happen to anybody. It doesn't matter who you are. You make a few bad choices and the slope gets slippery, and sometimes it's hard to get back. It's hard to get your feet back under you as bad as you want to deep down inside. Deep down I wanted to get sober. Deep down I wanted to get clean. Deep down I wanted a better life, and but getting there seemed like a massive mountain that was just unattainable for a long time. I just got so deep into it and kind of found a different identity, than I had ever been and ever dreamed of, started going in and out of jail, started doing a little more longer times in jail over time, little worse charges, and it just became a lifestyle. I had kids too out there, Donnie. I had kids out there, and I robbed, all the things that I stole and all the bad things that I did. The one thing that I had a lot of guilt and shame around was that time I robbed from my kids. Robbed from my daughters, and I struggled with that for a long time, after getting sober, but the thing about it is I started graduating. Here I am, I've done a bunch of jail time, and I'm on probation, and I'm getting in trouble for my actions, all based because I'm a drug addict, because I'm using drugs. If you take drugs out of the scenario, I'm probably not doing any of those things I'd been doing, looking back on it, and that was the fuel. But then, I found my way to maximum state prison. It was like, at that time, to me, it was like I'd graduated. Now I'm big time. This is what's going to go on from now on in my life, Mm-hmm. I'm going to be dead, or I'm going to be put in with all the killers, and I'll never forget when that decision came, like I'm not where I'm supposed to be here, I want something better in my life, and I got to figure out a way to stop this, and I'm sitting at the Oregon State Penitentiary. I'm sitting at the chow hall, and there's 3 guys at the table, and one's doing life, the other one's doing 50 years, and the other one's doing, double life sentence. They're killers. They're here forever. And, I'll never forget that feeling I had that I wasn't far from being in a situation where that's going to be me. That life has taken me to where it's at, and I'm like just a close decision away from being locked up forever, or being dead, and just completely out of control. And so, that's when I made the decision. There I was. I'd been in and out of jail for 15, 16 years. I'd been locked up for 7 of that, and I decided I was going to change my life.
So was there? I know, reading the story. What was the main thing? I know we all want to change. We're going through dark times. You heard it so many times from people. They want to change. A lot of good people who got into bad situations want to change, but they just can't. It's hard. You put your life, 15 years of your life through this hell, through addiction and all these, charges you racked up. How were you able? Was it easy? Were you able to stop the drugs, get out of jail, stop the drugs, and go back to the 18-year-old guy who wanted to?
Oh man! So a lot of people always ask me, "What's the magic formula?" They want to know the magic formula. How'd you do it? What do I need to do? It's not that simple. It's not like we'd be passing it out and patenting it, But at the end of the day, it comes down to, have you had enough? Have you had enough? And everybody's bottom is going to be gauged a little differently. For mine, I had to dig a pretty good hole. And always hope for people to have a higher bottom than I did. But there's a few things that happen, and I call it the Magic Five, and I talk about it in my book, because I was miserable and hopeless and in and out of jail and prison and homeless, and I was trying to figure it out. And during this short period of time, there was a handful of things that had happened in my life. And, one of those things was I had abandoned my kids, and I hadn't seen my daughters in a couple of years, and I'm at a drug house, and all of a sudden there's a rap on the back door, and I go get the door, and it's my ex and my youngest daughter standing there, at the dope house, never wanted them to see me like that, and I know my mom told her where I was at because it was my mom's last ditch effort to try to reach me. Because she'd done everything. She's like, I'll send them over there, and I spent some time with her, and that really, really weighed on me a little bit, It really did reach me, and it weighed on me, and this little angel, my little daughter, and I was just really detached, and it emotionally affected me. And then shortly after that, I got this letter in the mail, and it was, little girl's writing, and I'm looking at it, and I'm reading it, and I'm reading the return address, and it sounds familiar, but I can't place it, and I open the letter, and all this bubbly, cool little stickers and things fall out, and I start reading this letter, and it's a high school girl up in Ellensburg, Washington, and while I'm reading this letter, Donnie, there's something really familiar about it, and I can't quite figure it out. And I'm reading, and she's talking about playing volleyball and all this stuff, and telling me about herself. And I get to the bottom, and she says, "I'm Brenda. I'm your sister." And I'd never met her before, and so So for, after that, I had on my dashboard of my truck, I had a picture of Brenna and a picture of my daughters. And, I guess it was a reminder for me, like, that's what I'm striving for, Yeah. Even at the worst, in my worst, deep down, I'm striving for that, And then, I, between ending up in the homeless shelter and experiencing that, and then while I was in prison that year, that final time in the maximum prison, my mom had passed away, Donnie, and I wasn't able to be there for her. I wasn't able to be there with my family at a time that they really needed me, and I'd been so detached and emotionally disconnected that I didn't even know that my mom was sick, And I talk about those things, and those are the things that reached me finally.
So you were in prison, and just from your story, you got a call, and your sister told you your mom was sick and she was dying of cancer, and at the time you were doing a little over a year in jail. You were just starting that sentence, and how did it feel realizing, man?
Well, so I call home, and I could tell something was wrong, and my sister's on the phone. She says, "Hey, Mom's sick," and so I talked to my mom, and I think I had talk to her. It happened really fast. And they'd hold the phone to her ear, and I'd tell her, I told her for the last time, and I'd told her this over and over my whole entire life, that I was going to change, and I was going to do something different, and I'd never been able to hold up that end of the bargain. Drugs had such a control over me that I would say anything, and I would try to do it, and then I'd sell out at some point. Well, I made some commitments to my mom on her deathbed, and I told her that I was gonna find myself, and I was gonna move forward, and I was gonna get out of this lifestyle, and I was gonna figure out how to become a better person. She passed away shortly after that while I was locked up, and so I spent the next about a year staying away from the segregation, staying away from the gang, staying away from the convicts, and just really focusing on trying to get my head right before I got out. Spent a lot of time with myself, and writing my kids, and really getting emotionally grounded and focused, because I had a long, hard road ahead of me. And upon my release, and I'd been released a dozen times before over the years, and I always went back to what I knew, And another thing I did that I always, I think it was an important part in helping empower me, because that's all I knew for 15, 20 years, and I had a little phone book with everybody's number in it, and always had it in my pocket, we didn't have all the phones and stuff, And, when I got out, I was released to downtown Portland.
And this was late 2004?
Yeah, the day after Thanksgiving, 2004. I'll never forget. I was eating cold turkey,
So you're released to downtown Portland?
Released to downtown Portland, the bus from the prison right into downtown, and they dropped me off with a bus ticket and $24 and the clothes I was wearing. And I had a lot of decisions to make at the moment, and my normal activity would have been to jump on the bus and head over to a dope house. And what I decided to do was I was going to give this thing a run, and I knew that if I was going to have a chance, I needed to stand in this line right here with all the piss and booze and homeless and dirt and grime, and I needed to stand in this line with these guys and get into that homeless shelter, and I needed to lay on that gym floor, and if I could do that, then I thought I'd have a chance to stay sober for the day, and I was scared. I felt like running. It took everything I had to stand in that line, but I did that, and I continued to do that every night. And during the day, I'd collect tobacco out of the ashtrays and roll cigarettes and let it dry overnight. So I had a smoke in the morning. It was the highlight of the day, man. And I didn't have much. Oh, the other thing I did is I took that phone book after a couple days and I threw it in the trash can. And I told myself, I'm done with these. I'm starting a new life, and I'm going to start with just my family, my loved ones, and I'm going to build some positive relations moving forward. I didn't know how, but I knew if I could distance myself from this phone book too, it was kind of like burning the past, getting rid of the past. And, so I beat the streets looking for treatment, looking for help, looking for somebody to take me in and help me. Because I didn't have any money, I didn't have any insurance, I wasn't mandated, I didn't have anywhere. It's just me trying to get help.
Just you with the promise to your mother on her deathbed that you're gonna do something this time, right?
Yep. And so I put everything into it. And don't get me wrong, there were times where I felt like having a shot of whiskey might make me feel a little better. Here I am at the bottom, and I'm on the streets, and I'm sleeping in a shelter, and I'm feeling pretty low. Yeah. But that little voice, was like, you can do this, you can do this. And I don't know, it took me about a month or so, and finally I knocked on the right door. you know, all these treatment centers, no, we can't take you in, you know, you don't have any money, you don't have insurance, you know, we're full or whatever, you know. And finally one day a door was open, and you know, I was kind of at the end of my rope, actually. I remember that feeling I was getting, and I went into a coffee shop, and I ran into a guy that I'd known that we used to get loaded together, and his eyes were all bright and white, and he looked good, and I'd never seen him like this. And I'm like, Jimmy, how you doing? You know, actually, he called me out. He goes, hey, Rich, how you doing? And I remember, like, almost, like, this is important because I almost buffed it. Oh, I'm doing great. You know, hey, I'm doing good. How you doing, man? And that ego and pride almost got me. And in fact, I write about that because there's a moment where I deflate. And I looked at Jimmy and I said, I'm not doing good, bud. I'm not doing good. I need some help, you know. And he said, oh, okay, I want you to meet somebody. And he took me over across the street, and I met this guy named Dave Fitzgerald. Tattooed up, you know, looked like he just got out of prison, you know. But guy had astronomical clean time, and I was like, huh? You know, and I'm looking around the room, and there's guys. Come to find out, there's a lot of guys I can relate to, you know. And the mentoring program where a lot of them done prison time, and they got sober, and they're counselors and mentors, and helping guys like me.
So a lot of the people, you saw yourself in these people, these are people who went through the same struggles as you, addiction, prison, but now they had made it to a better life, and they've put that behind them. That's what you kind of wanted to be, what these men were.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I strive to have in my life and be. And then that's the difference between all the other treatment centers I'd been to. Like, this is different, you know. These guys lived the life. And before I knew it, I was able to connect with them. And, you know, the thing is, they don't take just anybody in there. He's like, well, you know, are you serious about it? You know, how bad do you want this? You know, and he kind of questioned me, and then he says, okay, why don't you check in with me every single day? You know, so-and-so time every day. Like, okay. So I ended up going back to that homeless shelter every day, and every day I'd come meet David and check in with him. And I think he was testing me to see if I was going to stay sober on my own for a while, and then also find room for me too, probably, you know, make sure, because, you know, and within a couple of weeks, all of a sudden, you know, he says, I got a room for you, you know, and so, man, you know, and it's the first time I'd had my own little place, you know, clean and nice, and, you know, it was unbelievable what that program did for me, Donnie. You know, I was looking for something, and when I found Central City Concern, I found David Fitzgerald, I found Randy Servisto and Bobby So, and, you know, I really looked up to those guys, you know, for what they had done with their lives, and I told myself, if they can do it, I can do it. I just need to listen, follow direction, and do what they did, you know. I remember when I got to the room, and you know, he put me in my room. I didn't have much. I just had, you know, we stopped off and got a bag of food at some place, donation place, and I had the clothes that I was wearing, and that's it. And he dumped me in that room, and he said, I'll see you in the morning, you know, and he gave me a minute in there, and I'm in there just kind of just resonating over my life, you know, and you know, realizing that this is that one moment the opportunity I've been looking for, you know, and but I was scared, but I knew I wanted what they had, and I went to put something in the drawer, and I pulled the drawer open, and there was a note in there, and I pulled the note out, and I started reading it, and there was a note in that drawer from the guy that was in that room before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who had made it and graduated and left a note for me, you know, and I'm reading it, and there's some really awesome stuff in there. He's talking about how his life changed and using some lingo and wording like stuff, you know, internal work, you know, and I'm like, oh, I love this, you know, and you know, at the end he says, I hope this room does for you what it did for me, you know, and it said Shano, you know, and yeah, and it inspired me to want to, you know, figure out how to do it, you know, and So I stayed in that program for 6 months, man. I lived in that room, and I got grounded, and started getting a sense of inspiration and finding myself and clarity. And you get the drug addict off drugs for 6 months, and you see a little more clearly. Things are different, and a lot of reprogramming and mentorship.
Yeah, you figure you left for Alaska in 1989. And now you're here in early 2000s. You probably almost felt like you were back as that kid leaving high school, I feel like, because you had a restart at life. You were that high school kid who was leaving, who thought he was going to go on to wrestle in college. Instead, you went to Alaska. You chased the money. You ended up addicted to drugs, homeless, going in and out of prison for 7 years. But now you're back, and it almost probably felt like you had that chance that you missed in 1989, I bet.
Yeah, it's like I got a chance for a redo, and I got a chance to just do it all over again. And it's never too late to make a comeback. That's the message of it all. Like, it doesn't matter when. It's never too late to make a comeback, and we'll get into that in a bit. But, for me it was like, okay, now I get to redo this thing. I get to do it over, and I get to start here. This is where it begins. I gotta stay sober, man. Everything else, if I can just stay sober, that's going to be the win in itself. Who didn't know I was going to go on and do what I've done, but just staying sober for a day was going to be a win.
So I gotta ask this because Donnie tells you. I tell my story on here. How did it feel when you finally, in your own way, were able to slay that mental monster that you felt was holding you back from truly being what you really wanted to be?
Oh man, it's one of the most empowering things in your life. It's like you've been held down for so long. You've been under that hand for so long, and finally to be able to breathe and think for yourself and take control of your life back and make conscious decisions that are going to better your life. It's almost like I found my identity finally. Yeah. I found that kid that's always been in there. Finally came out. It's like, okay, I got this, I remember here, I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm in treatment. This is good because this is when, and it's kind of a little bit of an answer to your question.
Okay.
When did I know? Or when, there was a few things that happened over that first year of sobriety that really kind of set the tone, and it gave me that sense of empowerment, and I was a few months out. I was in the program, and I'd ran into, and I talk about it in the book, I ran into this gal that I had used with for a long time. She had a spell on me for a long time. And here I am. I'm sober a year and a half. I'm in a program. I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm feeling good about myself. I'm finding myself. I'm inspired to find my way. And I run into her in downtown Portland. And man, oh man, did it all kind of come back, like all of a sudden I'm feeling insecure, and I'm, now it's that trigger, And she gives me her number. She said, "Oh man, how you doing, man? I want to see you again." Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And I mean, she had a spell on me, dude. And so I get her number, and she wants to meet up tonight, right? This is a moment where this is that moment, guys. I go back to by then I was actually in an Oxford house. I'd graduated the program. I was in an Oxford house, sober living. I transitioned into a sober house, so anyway, I jump. So mind you, the evening comes. I get on the bus to go meet her. Right, ride the bus. My stomach's hurting. I'm going through a warfare right now. I'm going to meet somebody I'd used drugs with for 7 years, lived with for 7 years. I was with her when I when I went to prison that last time, right?
Okay.
So anyway, I get off the bus in Portland about a block from her hotel, and by then I'm just sick as a dog. I'm feeling really, really anxious, and there's a war going on inside of me, the good and the bad, like the good, the right decision and the wrong decision, and at that moment, my life, if I'd have went up to that hotel, it would have ruined my life. It would have ruined everything. And that was it was a kind of a tough decision because I was getting pulled at so hard. And I thought, oh, I'll be all right for the night. You know, I'd be all right. I need to see her. You know, yeah, I can do this, you know. Well, I get back on the bus and I go back to the sober house, right? And I'm tossing and turning all night. And I woke up in the morning, man, and I was so energized, dude. I was so energized. I'd won. We'd won. Sobriety won, right? How many times you say addiction wins or sobriety? Well, sobriety won last night. You know, and at that point, and that was one of the harder. I realized then it was like, oh, I've taken all of it back. I have the power to say no, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the first real intervention in the moment that the pressure was on, I guess, you know? Like it's been fairly easy up to that point. There was pressure on me, man. And when I woke up in the morning, I was like, yeah, sobriety won today. You know, I knew that I could probably navigate through most things moving forward. For, you know, I was doing good. That's all. I was doing good. And you know, and obviously at some point I stayed sober for a couple of years before I really decided that I was going to make a massive run. You know, staying clean was good. You know, my life was getting better. I was, you know, starting to build a relationship with my kids and things like that, you know, and build positive relationships. And I felt pretty grounded and I was doing good, but there was something inside of me that wanted so much more, you know, and I wanted more. And I dreamed about some things my whole life, and I wanted to pursue it.
So, what did you pursue, Richard?
So, you know, here's the thing, man.
You're what, 34 at this point, or
yeah. I'm 30. I'm 36.
36. Yeah.
I got sober. I was 34. I'm 36. I got 3 or 4 years clean now. You know, I'm excited. I'm feeling good. I'm healthy. I'm driving a good train right now, you know, and I'm like, okay, now I've dreamed about college wrestling my whole life. You know, I've missed being part of the team my whole life. Like even at my worst in a jail cell, I'm thinking about, you know, how the impact wrestling had on me and how I should have been in college. And, you know, I had the what could have beens and, you know, here's where why not baseball, why wrestling? Okay, so you got to picture this. I'm a senior in high school. I'm about a 500 wrestler. I'm pretty good, but I'm not great, you know, and I'm sitting around 5 or 6 potential D1 athletes, okay? These are studs, and I'm right in the middle, you know, and, you know, and this is an important message to all you coaches out there, you know, is the coaching philosophy that H.D. Waddell had when I was a senior was, you know, he treated me just as he did his star athletes. You wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I didn't feel any different, you know. And so the coaching culture that he brought, everybody was important. Boost everybody up, you know. And you would have thought I was one of his D1 athletes, you know. And that's the culture he had, and that's how he treated me. And so, you know, coming from that kind of an upbringing, you know, I'm like, that was what I knew, you know. And the community, the fellowship, you know. And so I wanted that back in my life.
You're 36 years old. You're not a senior in high school anymore?
Right. It's like, I want that back in my life. Can I have it? Nobody thought I could have it. It's like, it's way too late now, you know. And I just had this vision, you know. I dreamed about the national tournament. I had a vision of being back on the wrestling team, being part of it at some level, right? And so I said, heck with it. I'm going to go pursue this thing, you know. I'm going to go pursue it. So I went to the local college, Clackamas Community College. I went and talked to the athletic director. I said, hey, you guys have an automotive program. I want to get certified in automotive. I want to get an education in automotive. And I've dreamed about wrestling my whole life. So can I be on your team? I'm 36 years old. He looked at me and he goes, well, he assumed I'd been wrestling. I'm in great shape. I'm all of a sudden I'm going to make this comeback. And, you know, he looked at me and he goes, how long has it been since you wrestled? And I said, 20 years. And he said, what? And he tried, you know, he's like, oh, really? Well, why wrestling? And one thing led to another. And he asked me this question, and I'm telling him, and I'm like, hey, I need wrestling. I need wrestling. And he's like, you know, it's never been done at your age. It hasn't been, you know, you forget how demanding it is and how hard it is. Like, it's hard enough for a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, he goes, the chances of you being able to do it are slim to none. But I mean, I guess you could maybe be part of the team, like I'm thinking in my head, the water boy or something. You know, I mean, that's kind of, he's trying to let me down easy. He's trying to steer me off a little and let me down easy without saying, hey, you can't do this, dude. You know, and I'll be honest with you. When I left there, all I heard was there was a chance. There was a little chance. You know, I didn't need much at that time. I just needed a little bit of hope. And that hope for me was that somebody gave a little chance that I could be part of the team. And, you know, and so there it is, you know, here I am. I register for college. I'm in classes and I show up for practice. I'm 36 years old. I'm 20 years older than the other athletes, you know, I'm 10 years older than the coaches. And so, it was awkward. It was weird. It was uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, man, it was one of the most amazing seasons for the college. For me, it was the dynamics that, you know, I brought a lot of life lessons into that wrestling room. And a lot of these athletes changed their life in that season, you know. And, you know, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of bets and a lot of over-unders. You know, he'll make it a day, make it a week, maybe 2 weeks. Well, I will give him 2 weeks maybe, you know. And funny thing is, I showed up every day. I got there early, stayed late, and I showed up every single day, even when I couldn't walk.
Yeah, I read the one story. I think you showed up at the beginning, and you're around 19-year-old kids, you know, half your age, and you showed up, and I think the coach, who was 10 years younger than you, really said he knew you meant business because you showed up without running shoes on the first day, and they were going for like a 3-mile run, I think it was. And he said, you know, you can do it later. And you said, no, I'm going to do it because I'm going to prove to these guys I'm here. So you ran all these miles without shoes on them, all right?
That's exactly right. He gave me an out. He says, hey, you can go home, bring shoes tomorrow. Because the first 2 weeks is Ironman, and they just sprint and they run for hours. That's, you're puking and sweat. They're thinning the herd is what they're doing.
Yeah, anybody doesn't know, I've wrestled. I've played every other sport, and wrestling's by far the most physical. It takes the most out of you. It's the most conditioning. There's nothing that compares. You know, football is awesome. I love football. I went on to college, but wrestling, you know, you got to be in some kind of great shape.
Hey, it's a grind, man. It's a grind, and it's not for, you know, it's a lot, man. And but yeah, so I was like, oh well, no, I'm here to be on the team. I didn't want to miss 1 minute. I spent 20 years thinking about this. Now I'm here. I didn't want to miss 1 minute with the team, and so I kicked. You know, I went running barefoot, man. And you know,
so how was that first year? Your body had been through a lot. For you to go to, you know, people don't realize all the stuff you put your body through for almost 20 years or whatever it was. How was that first year going from, you know, former drug addict who abused his body for so long to collegiate wrestler?
Well, it took everything I had. It took everything I had to show up and do it, you know. I remember there was mornings I could not get out of bed. My body hurt so bad that I literally had to help myself and hold the wall to get to the shower in the morning. And, you know, there were times where I didn't feel like going. There were times where I was hurting so bad it took an hour just to get my body moving to go to school, you know. And I, you know, the other part to that too is, you know, I got my ass handed to me, Donnie. I got beat up for a whole year, you know. So there's the emotional draining, there's the physical. There's times where I looked in the mirror in the morning and I'm like, I don't know if I can take another loss. I don't know if I can take any more of this. Like mentally, I'm breaking. I'm breaking. It's like I'm physically beaten. I can't keep up with the kids. I'm losing match after match, you know, and it's just like, you know, you start questioning what you're doing. You start questioning, you know, maybe I shouldn't, maybe okay, I gave it a shot, you know, and you know, maybe I could have, you know, inside I couldn't quit, dude. I told myself that what I put myself through 20 years, that nobody will ever put me through anything again that'll ever be close to that. And so nobody's ever going to be able to break me, you know. And so I kept showing up, man. And, you know, by the end of the season, I had lost like, I lost a lot of matches. I found one win that whole season, okay? I found one win. I'm hanging on to it.
And you came back, though, for a second year.
I did. So there you are. I lost all my matches, but what I did for the team was much bigger than a win. You know, what it did for me was much bigger than wrestling. And my life was getting better. I was getting an education. I was feeling better. I was feeling like an athlete again. You know, my head was getting right. I was focusing. I was driving forward and starting to picture myself doing good, positive things in my life. You know, and I was getting further and further away from drugs and further and further away from that lifestyle, you know, and it started becoming more clear to me that this is what I've been dreaming about my whole life. And so I could have probably hung up the shoes at the end of that first season. I mean, you know, the old guy came back, gave it a shot, wrestled the whole season, and
still impressive story.
Yeah. Like I could have that could have been good. That could have been good.
But you didn't, Richard.
So I did not. No, I wasn't done yet, guys. So I looked back on the season. I saw there were some good things going on. I saw some things that I had an advantage on. And what I decided was I'm here now. I'm going to take this 2 years for everything it's worth, you know. And so what I did is I moved into a garage of a buddy's house out by the college at the end of the season, and I lived there, and I trained all summer. I trained twice a day. I got on a special diet, and I started doing everything I could to be in the very best shape I could the next season coming around, you know. And a lot of the work that you know, a lot of the best work happens on your own. You know, there's team workouts, and then what happens off the mat or away from the ball field can really determine on if you can hit a higher, more elite level, you know. So I got focused, and I was training hard for 3 months, and when the season started that next year in 2008, man, everybody was fat and out of shape and just getting started. I was sprinting 2 miles, you know. I was eating right. I was down to weight. I lost 15 pounds during that summer. I'm right at weight, so I'm not having to cut any weight. I'm at the lower weight class. You
moved down to 184.
Yeah, 184. I came down 225 to 197 and then 184 by the start of the second season.
So you're the one not wearing the trash bag for the runs and the
right.
We've been there.
I don't have the rubber gear, you know. You know, so yeah, so I came in on weight from the start of the season all the way through without having to cut any weight. I was just living the life and eating a good diet, and man,
the wins started to come.
Dude, the wins started to come right away.
So you went from one win to, you know, now you're back at 36 years old or whatever, and you're winning collegiate wrestling matches against people who, you know, were state champions. These people who went to college for wrestling that are 19 years old.
Yeah, so, you know, and I don't know how. I feel good. I feel good. I feel great. I'm ready to go. I feel like I'm ready to beat everybody. Yeah. I mean, I'm so inspired, but I don't know yet till you get in the circle. You don't really know till you get in the circle. That's where the truth happens. Yeah. Once you step the line in the circle, that's when the truth happens, you know. And so the first tournament of the season was within a few weeks. We went out to Pacific, and we had a tournament. And I won 3 or 4 matches that day, dude. I came out and placed in the top couple guys. I won 3 or 4 matches. I won more matches than I did the whole year before, right off the bat. And now I'm excited to the ceiling, dude.
Now that it start realizing, hey, man, I might have a legitimate shot at going to this national title.
Yep,
and going to this national championship, and getting invited at my chance to win a national title in college. Does that start becoming not so distant of a dream anymore?
Well, that became the dream. You know, now it shifted from being part of the team. You know, I mean, wrestling saved my life. Let's get real. Let's get honest here. It saved my life. I'm still chasing a national championship now. Now I'm thinking about a national title. Now I'm thinking like I can maybe make a run at this thing. Now I've found a groove. I'm doing well. I just beat up, you know, I just beat some guys. I'm winning. And so that was the focus all year. I ended up having a winning season, Donnie. I ended up winning and only lost a handful of matches the whole season. So, you know, they could almost check a win on the box, you know, like, okay, yeah. Rich is here to, you know, and I experienced a whole winning season. And so there we are at regionals at the end of the season, man. And
we got a place in the top 2 regionals to make it to. That's how you get to the national championship, right? Mm-hmm.
Top 3 go at that time. Top 3 go. And, you know, I'm seeded number 2 right now. I'm seeded number 2 in the tournament. I ended up winning my way through the tournament. I get into the finals. I take a loss in the finals, but I placed second, which qualified me for Rochester, Minnesota, the junior college national tournament.
And this is when I think ESPN picked up your story.
Yep.
This is when everybody realized, like, hold on, what the hell? They're looking at the roster. What's a 36-year-old guy has no business doing this? From homeless, drug addicted, 7 years in jail. What's he? That's when your story, people started realizing, like, what the heck?
Yeah. At first, they're so here's their mindset. At first, they're like 37 years old in junior college wrestling. Well, this could be a great story, you know, and what is this? And then they dug into my history, and then they were blown away. They were like, no way. We got to go get this guy. We got to go follow this guy, you know. And so ESPN followed us around through the regional tournament, off to nationals, man. And I won a match at nationals. I won a match, went 1-2, and honestly, I was 37 at the time, probably one of the oldest that ever competed at the national wrestling tournament. And, you know, I fulfilled a lifelong dream, a lifelong goal. Like, that whole experience set me up to really go out in life and start chasing dreams, start chasing goals, start raising the bar up, you know. If I could do this, I need to start raising the bar.
So what took you down that wrestling world after that? So you made it to the national championship, and then your wrestling was over. Where'd you go after that?
Yeah,
we're going to wrap up soon, but I want to hear where you went from.
So there I am. I'm like, I'm still healthy. I'm feeling good. I haven't been injured. And I'm like, I find out about the Masters, man. I find out there's a whole nother league I can compete in. And so immediately I started competing with the Masters. And I actually competed till 2016 for 9 more years after college, up until I was
5-time
46.
All-American,
Yep.
and then tell us what happened in 2016.
Yeah, so I'd gotten into the finals. I won I won a lot of matches, and I really just my life just was about wrestling and competing, and I ended up finally winning a national championship in 2016, and I was like, yeah, I finally won that sucker.
You got the ring on?
Yeah, I got the ring. I got the photo.
You know, this dream to get your life back that started in jail, you know, on your mother's deathbed. You know, you took it, you ran with it. You won an Emmy for ESPN, won an Emmy. Whoever wins it, I don't know who wins it, but for the documentary on Richard Jensen.
Yeah.
And you took this, and then you started to realize you had this mentality to be a champion in life, and you realized that this mentality you used could actually save other lives and help other people. How did?
Yeah.
You know, you got the book now. I got it right here. To be a champion in life, people can get it on Amazon and everything. Right? It says homeless to champion. Tell us how you took that and you made it into life.
So during that 9 years, I was competing with the Masters, okay? The ESPN documentary came out right after college, and it got a little notoriety. This is a great story, guys. I didn't know that, you know, kids were the ones that encouraged me to be a champion in life, okay? I had a vision and a goal, but they did it. I went to my post office box one morning, and there was 30 letters in my post office box from kids. After that video went on national television, a teacher in New York took that documentary and played it to his 8th grade class in health, and they had to answer questions about the video. And, you know, what'd you learn from Rich Jensen's video? What were some of the mistakes he's made? You know, tell Rich Jensen a story, ask him a question. It was an assignment, and they sent me these letters, and I was supposed to write them back, answer the questions and write them back.
But you're Richard Jensen, the man who went from homeless drug addict to national championship. You didn't write them back, did you?
I had to jump on a plane and go meet these kids, man. It was a decision at that time. It was like, this is my chance to tilt the scales back a little, right? Like, do something good and go meet these kids. So I flew out to New York, man, and I called the principal. We set up an assembly, and I spoke to 857th and 8th graders.
That's awesome.
Shared my story,
awesome.
Yeah. And first time I ever spoke publicly was that moment, you know. And I had a private session with these kids, and I answered their questions in person, man. And when I left there, I was so empowered because the kids were engaged. You could tell they were on the edge of their seat. I felt good about what I was doing, and I felt like we made a difference. And so my wife and I went home, and Be a Champion Life was born. And that was, you know, and that was 2009, guys. And so I've been building a following and speaking for the past 10 years while I was training and competing. And, you know, we spoke to in the neighborhood of 40,000 kids in 2018 and 19. You know, so we're out there. You know, we spoke to a lot of kids around the country. My goal is to speak to every kid in the country. So sometimes there's a little roadblock, and there's things that are going to keep you stuck for a minute, but that's still the goal, even with being shut down the past 2 years. I've been kind of sidelined. Yeah. And so this is my first tour back since, since COVID hit. Like, I'm out touring, I spoke at a few schools.
You came out even today when you came to Philly, you went right over to the Rocky statue. I know you went to the police station. You just went around and you were trying to share you're handing your book out. You gave me a bunch of copies to give out. And you turned this whole thing. This guy in 1989 who made that decision to go to Alaska that ended up changing your life for 15 years, sent you to prison. You took that and you regained what you had, that dream back when you were 19, and you turned it into a whole lifestyle. You got the book we have up there, Be a Champion in Life. That's who you are now.
Yeah, this was one of the most healing processes, was writing the book, guys. Yeah. And we wrote it in a way that everybody on the planet can relate to it. It's about life. It's about getting to the other side of the struggle, and it's about finding that vehicle that's going to help you, stay focused and moving and aspire to be great,
Basically going from hopelessness to hope, man, and that's what our show's all about. So, Richard, I got to ask you, we're running out of time, I got to ask you the question, man. What does hope mean to you, Richard?
Oh, man. Hope is it's the intangible. It's the thing that helps keep us focused. It's the thing that helps drive us and keep us inspired, just to be a better person. Hope is something that you can draw from just about anybody in your life, and I think that it's important to instill hope on the world, especially right now in a very, very tough time for everybody.
That's awesome, man. Your whole story is amazing. We could talk to you forever. Before we get out of here, anything you wanna leave with Hungry for Hope Nation, or anybody listening, anybody going through dark times, anybody who might have got through them dark times, just anybody in general, what do you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I think it's just this my story, and you've got a great story too, man, and I really appreciate you being vulnerable and transparent and honest and actually sharing your story, because stories like this are what drove me early on to get sober. Is emotionally connecting with somebody else that understood, and if you're struggling out there with addiction or money or relationships or mental health, or, it's got a lot of different faces. Mm-hmm. Just at the end of the day, there's others that can relate to you. You're not alone out there, and, it's important that we find, other people that can relate to us, There's a solution out there. What I do is, oh man, I just know that guys like me helped me get here, so I feel responsible to do everything I can to help make change in the world and help inspire kids and teach kids about, some of the choices that they make could really change their life forever.
Yeah, it's amazing. I really think you're out there saving lives, man. People sometimes need to see somebody who went through that to connect, man. You went through all them missteps in life. I think there was a reason you went through it, and I think it was born to be a champion, to do this movement that you created. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show. I know Matt wants to thank you.
Thank you for coming out here today, man. It was awesome to hear your story in person and not just reading it. Hearing it from you is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Now, if any of our viewers want to connect with you online, get the book on social media, you got the website tobeachampion.com or tobeachampion.life.com?
Beachampion.life.com. All social media platforms are Be a Champion in Life, and the book's available on Amazon, man. I'm telling you, this isn't just for kids. This isn't just about addiction. It's about life, and I think we can all relate to some facet of the story or another, and it'll touch your heart.
Thank you so much, man. We just want to thank you for coming on the show, Richard. Matt, thanks for guest co-hosting.
No problem.
Richard, thank you so much, man. Hungry for Hope Nation, we are out of here. See you next week.